Welcome to Staff Works Explained. If it's your first time here, please subscribe to this channel. For the repeat viewers, we thank you for the support that you have given this channel. In today's video, we'll be talking about, or rather we'll be looking at the EACRF Mission in Eastern DRC. In this video, we'll examine the latest development in the EACRF peace process and also give an analysis of the ongoing efforts to bring peace and stability in Eastern DRC and the problems that the EACRF force is currently facing. We know that efforts to bring peace to the Eastern DRC have been ongoing for many years due to protracted conflict that has been facing this region. The region has been plagued by armed groups, including the notorious M23. And these groups have caused widespread violence, displacement of people, human rights abuses, among other atrocities. In response to these challenges, regional and international actors have made concerted efforts to address the root causes of the conflict and establishing lasting peace. These efforts have involved diplomatic and military engagements. Peace agreements have been signed, and lately there has been deployment of regional forces from the East African Community. This force is called the East African Community Region Force, which is also known as EACRF. EACRF is a military force which comprises of troops from member states in the East African Community, and those who have been deployed in DRC come from Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, and South Sudan. The force has been established with an objective of promoting peace in that region, bringing stability and security within the region. Since its deployment, EACRF has faced, or rather has made some notable progress in its mission to enhance security. Throughout its deployment, particularly in areas which have been affected by conflict, such as North Kivu, the force has played a great role in restoring calm, protecting civilians, and also supporting peace-building efforts. However, the peacekeeping force has faced some challenges. One of them is lack of support from within DRC. The government of DRC does not seem to support this force because, according to them, they are not doing what they are supposed to do, that is fighting the rebels. In the recent past, we have had the resignation of the force commander, General Joseph Nyaga, who was the Kenyan commander for the EACRF forces in the mission. In his resignation, he said that he is doing it because of threats to his security and also actions which showed that the DRC government was not committed to supporting this force. Nyaga highlighted that there has been suspension of Facebook page by the DRC government. There has been failure by the DRC government to pay for the administrative costs, salaries, and the electricity bill of the EAC force headquarters. Upon his resignation, he was replaced by another Kenyan, Major General Muthuri Kyugu. In reacting to this resignation, the Congolese military is said to have publicly celebrated the exit of EACRF commander, with a spokesperson of the military accusing the Kenya officer of peaceful existence with M23 group and the Rwandan soldiers in areas which are controlled by the Kenya contingent. The Congolese government has been accusing M23 of instigating violence in this area, and M23 is said to be supported by the Rwanda. So in this essence, the DRC military is happy that the general who is leading this force has resigned, and this shows that he has failed in his mandate to defend the people of DRC. To show lack of support, This is also seen from the reaction of DRC president, who is reported to have said, and I quote, "He is talking about the threats, but he has never told us about those threats." This is in reference to the Major General who resigned, Nyaga. The president continues to say that, why didn't he tell us about these threats? He alone knows. And when he decides to leave the DRC, Kenya directly sends another commander of force without consultation, as if that force only belongs to Kenya. There must be a problem and they need to talk about it. So this shows that the DRC, even at the highest level, does not support the EACRF forces, because the president here is seen to be insinuating that the forces, or this force, should be controlled by the DRC government. He says that they are not informing him of their developments, they are not supporting their cause, that is fighting the M23 rebels, among other actions. The opposition to EACRF forces by the president is also seen through his characterization of the EACRF as being on a tour of duty. This suggests a level of distrust and lack of respect toward the force and the East African community in general. It implies that the president sees the force presence as temporary and perhaps not fully committed to addressing the conflict in the eastern DRC. This sentiment could stem from various factors. First, there may be historical tensions and suspicion between DRC and some East African countries which are involved in the force, especially Uganda and Rwanda, due to their involvement in the past conflict in the region. This could contribute to a perceived lack of trust in the intentions and actions of the regional force, and that's why he is keen to see them leave, because they have, according to him, they have failed in their mission. The statement also reflects the frustration with perceived ineffectiveness of this force in dealing with the M23 and other armed groups in this region. If the force has not been able to fulfill its mandate or achieve significant results on the ground, this is because of the sense of disillusionment and skepticism on the part of the DRC government. The president has given the biggest warning yet, that the East African force will have to leave the country by June if they are not effective on the ground. He's pushing for a plan B from the Southern African Development Corporation, SADC, to send troops. He accuses the EACRF force, of cohabiting with the rebels after the region troops declined to enter into fighting them. He warns that under the terms of the EACRF mandate, by next June, if the results of this mission are not satisfactory, the contingent which came to rescue the DRC will have to leave the territory for good. President Tshisekedi has had a harsh assessment of the East African forces, as he is quoted saying that, "We have accepted the force to accompany the Congolese military to impose peace and trying to stop M23, which Rwanda supports. But unfortunately, we have noticed certain contingents among this force, except Burundi, who is putting all efforts in the mission as it was defined. Other contingents are now living with M23, collecting taxes in the zone that they are legally occupying. That's a genuine problem, and it also compels us to question the purpose of EAC missions." End of quote. EACRF says that their mandate is peacekeeping and protection of civilians, while also supporting the political track on the dialogue. EAC Secretary General Peter Mathuki has requested 6-month extension, but DRC Congo only gave 3 months, that is up to June, and there is no indication that this period will be extended because of this opposition, this distrust that DRC has shown. The preference of deployment of SADC troops instead of having the EACRF forces on the ground also shows that the president has no confidence with his force, and is insinuates that they are not effective or they are not committed in addressing the conflict in Eastern DRC. The decision to favor the SADC troops stems from several considerations. First, there's that perception that the force would be more neutral and impartial in their approach compared to the East African forces, given that these East African forces such as Rwanda and Uganda and Burundi have in the past been involved in the DRC conflict. The president believes that SADC troops will bring a fresh perspective and approach in the situations untainted by past animosities. Additionally, the call for these troops could also be driven by regional dynamics and alliances. DRC shares borders with several SADC countries such as Angola, Zambia, Tanzania, and may have stronger political economic ties with his country. He's seeking, or he could be seeking, support and involvement of these neighboring countries in addressing the conflict, seeing that they are more reliable partners. The president wants the SADC troops to fight M23, something which you don't know whether they will accept. On a summit which was held recently, Namibia approved the deployment of the forces, although there is no immediate clarification on which countries are going to send these forces. The president office has already announced that the troops will be coming, and they will come to have an offensive mandate. SADC has once been deployed in this region, but they failed to bring to an end the menace of the armed group, and UN experts accused South African mission at the time for contributing to the looting which was going on in this region. However, it is important to note that the effectiveness of these troops in resolving the conflict is not guaranteed. Like any other external force, SADC troops are going to face significant challenges, just like the EACRF has faced, especially in navigating the complex local dynamics and also the competing interests that exist and the armed groups that exist in this region. Ultimately, the key to success lies in fostering genuine cooperation and trust, as well as coordination among all the actors who are involved. In its reaction, the Secretariat of EAC has urged all the players to support the efforts of the regional force that is deployed in Eastern DRC. They say that the force has a specific mandate of facilitating the implementation of the regional-led peace efforts in the country. According to the Secretariat, the force has so far overseen the withdrawal of armed groups who have handed over to them territories that they previously occupied. Almost all the territories which are surrendered to these were occupied by M23, one of the armed groups which is fighting in the Eastern DRC. M23 is said to have willfully surrendered the territories under their control in the spirit of showing good faith to the peace process that was initiated by the regional leaders. We have the process which is going on in Nairobi and another in Luanda, Angola. There's a feeling that Kinshasa government has not taken concrete actions to follow through the peace efforts and implement the agreed upon roadmap. Despite the regional leaders coming together and reaching a consensus on the steps which are supposed to be taken, the Kinshasa government has been limited to making empty declarations and engaging in symbolic gestures without taking substantive measures. This lack of implementation of the peace roadmap is an indication that the government of Kinshasa, according to analysts, is not committed or does not have a political will on the part they are supposed to play. There's a suggestion that there's a disconnect between the government's words and actual actions, and this raises the question about its sincerity of intentions to bring peace in this region. After the armed groups withdrew from their positions as they were instructed by leaders, the next logical steps was for these warring parties to engage in a political process which was to be aimed at bringing a lasting solution to the security challenges that has plagued this region in decades. However, the Kinshasa government has taken a different approach. They have stated that they are willing only to negotiate with other groups, but not with M23, which they have labeled as a terrorist group, and they have bluntly refused to engage in any negotiations with them. This stance is a contradiction of the peace process and the need for the parties to come together and participate in the political process, which is aimed at addressing all the issues which cause this conflict. The refusal to negotiate with M23 while engaging with other armed groups is a show of a selective approach by the government. It raises very serious question about the government commitments to include all and have a comprehensive peace agreement. By labeling M23 as a terrorist group and excluding them from the negotiation table, the government may be undermining the potential for a comprehensive and inclusive peace agreement that addresses the concerns of all parties. This situation further underscores the lack of progress in implementing the agreed upon steps for peace and the need for Kinshasa government to demonstrate a genuine commitment for peace process. Without engaging with all relevant parties, including the M23, there may be limited prospects for achieving lasting solution in this region. The efforts to bring peace to the DRC have faced numerous challenges and obstacles. Despite the ongoing diplomatic negotiations, peace agreements, and the deployment of regional forces, the conflict still continues. The resignation of the force commander of the EACRF due to threats and frustrations highlights the difficulties which are faced by the regional force in fulfilling this mandate. The reaction of the Kinshasa government to the force presence and their preference with negotiation with some groups and not others raises concerns about government's commitment to have an inclusive peace negotiations. President Tshisekedi calls for the deployment of SADC forces. This reflects that he has no confidence with the EACRF forces because he doesn't see them as being effective in dealing with this problem. The lack of implementation of the peace roadmap by the Kinshasa government shows there's a disconnect between their words and actions, and this raises serious doubts about the sincerity in pursuing lasting peace. The selective approach in engaging with armed groups, where they have excluded M23 from negotiations, also undermines the potential to come up with a comprehensive and inclusive peace agreement. Despite these setbacks and challenges, it is important that all regional and international actors were involved in this to foster cooperation, trust, and coordination. The success of this peace effort in the DRC will rely on genuine commitment in addressing the root causes and engaging all the relevant parties. The path to lasting peace requires concerted efforts, political will, and also a comprehensive approach that addresses the concerns of all the stakeholders involved. And that's when we might see that the region getting peace and stability. So thank you for watching this video. If you have come this far, thank you. For repeat viewers, we thank you for the support that you have given this channel. Watch other videos that you have done, and welcome for the next video.